and the young Rockets strike back. Hey, the series is 1-1. Big picture, that's kind of what you wanted. Headed to Houston for the first two games, them being the 2 seed, steal home court advantage. I think most people understood this was going to be a tough one. This was going to be a tough one, just historically speaking, game 2 on the road when you take game 1. And now you look, and everybody except that 1-8 matchup in the Western Conference is 1-1. But let's get to the big news. Jimmy Butler. He gets clipped and flipped late in that first quarter from Amen Thompson, who was tangled up. There was so much shoving and falling and flailing, right? And I call it tabletopped. It's happened to me more times than I would have liked, right? But usually in that type of collision, you can kind of grab and break a little bit of your fall on the guy that undercuts you because they're under you. And as you fall, you can either kind of slide off their back or you can grab them and brace your fall. But Jimmy just went bluntly to the ground. Now, the elbow ate a little bit of the impact. There were 2 points of contact, but he immediately grabs, I think it was his right hip. We know how tough Jimmy is, but they're listing it as another how many pelvic contusions can the Warriors have in a month? Steph, Kuminga, and now Jimmy. And this is part of the Jimmy Butler package. It's not that he's not durable. It's not that his body's not durable. It's not that he's not tough. It's what comes along with that playing style. And I get it. You say, that's not fair. It was a freak play, right? I know. But his playing style, he hits the ground a lot, right? And he puts his body in harm's way to be the player that he is. And so that's the problem. You get 2 days, you get back to San Francisco Saturday, where I imagine if the MRI is clear, he's going to give it a go. Playoff Jimmy, we've seen him, hobble around in the playoffs and still have huge games. I'll never forget, I think it was a 50 ball in Boston on a bad wheel. So we know how perseverant Jimmy can be, and playing injured or hurt, I should say, right? Is it hurt, injured? We'll find out, but is not something we haven't seen from Jimmy Butler. The problem is, how many times does Jimmy hit the floor per game? He's got to be amongst the league leaders, right? The way he draws contact, tries to get to the line, right? He takes 2 or 3 falls a game where you're like, ooh, that didn't look fun, right? And so trying to nurse a pelvic contusion with his playing style in this series against the Rockets, yeah, man, it's going to be tough. I don't know about where y'all are at, but it's hot out here in Arizona already. That means pools, tank tops, shorts. You got to show off what you've been working for. And I don't know if you can tell on camera, your boy's getting lean. I'm getting in really good shape, and a huge part of my success has been Factor. Fresh, never frozen food delivered directly to your doorstep, created by a team of gourmet chefs using only ingredients of integrity. You've got over 35 meals to choose from each week. Chef's Choice, Smart Cow, Vegan, Protein Plus. They're adding new products and snacks all the time. And I use it as a staple of 1 meal per day each week. I've got it covered. I look forward to it. 2 minutes. There's no cleanup. And it's kind of like a treat. But whether you need more structure, and again, you can order more and you're just getting started, or you just need to take care of that one cheat meal you keep having and you just replace it with Factor. So head to factor75.com or click the link below and use the code 50alchemy for 50% off plus free shipping. That's code 50alchemy at factor75.com for 50% off, plus you get free shipping on that first box. It's going to be tough. So we're all going to speculate. I assume Jimmy's going to play at what capacity? I don't know. Maybe he won't play till game 3, but I think we'll see Jimmy again in this series just based off who he is. Good luck protecting that tailbone. He's going to have to wear one of them diaper butt pads. I'm sure Steph can give him some tips, right? But let's move on to how the rest of the game played out. You had poopy pods, right? That lesson learned, young fella, that in the playoffs, on the road, you got to be careful where you eat. And again, not fair. It could have happened to anybody, right? But this happens specifically in the NBA on the road. Utah is notorious for opposing players coming down with food sickness, right? Bubble guts. So hopefully that's a lesson learned, and you'd assume 48 hours from now, he'll be good and back in the mix, right? As far as the turnovers go, I've got some advice, if you will, for both Draymond and Steph. Who are you to give this advice? Hey, man, I watch every minute. I study it as hard as anybody. I put as much time and energy into watching this Warriors team and analyzing it as anybody. So I'm going to give it. Draymond, he cannot throw as many anticipation passes. That's kind of his calling card, right? His signature, the cuts and the over the top, and he's throwing it into a tight window and kind of anticipating where the guy is going to be. They're holding everybody all the time, and they're kind of getting away with it, right? And so I'm not saying you can never do it. And maybe Draymond's train of thought is like, I'm trying to draw the foul by making the pass. But I think that he has to understand he's going to have to see it before he makes it a little more in this environment and how much holding they're getting away with. As far as Steph goes, we already talked about the compromised right thumb and some of the ball handling. One thing that I noticed, and I think he figured it out later in the game, late third quarter, when they send two with the big, whether that's Adams or Şengün, when they come up, you watch them, they come up and plant their feet hard. They come up to the level of the screen to trap, and then they plant their feet hard. And he started to figure out retreat dribble and then try to turn the corner or make the pass. And early in the game, I thought too many times he tried to split that, and Şengün, really good hands, right? And how physical the initial defender is on him. He wasn't able to do it. There were several turnovers, him trying to split these traps and kind of dribble between it, right? Retreat dribble and give yourself a better passing angle, or retreat dribble. And then I think you can turn the corner to the side of the big, because again, they're coming down and making a big jump stop plant. And so I think that that's something he can figure out moving forward. And then Jaylen Green has a coming out party, a welcome to the playoffs party after, 3 of 14 in game 1. And that's kind of by nature who he is. He's a feast or famine type of player, and a lot of young players are that way, but that's what it can look like when he's going. And I thought they just let him dance too much. They gave him too much space, and they let him get too comfortable. It's like the equivalent of in the NFL when you let a scat back into the flats. It's just devastating with their movement, and you got to make a small, shifty running back run between the tackles. And you got to make Jaylen Green run through the tackles and speed him up, get more physical. I know how electric he is turning the corner, how much space he creates. But if you give him 5-6 feet and you say, all right, we're not going to let you go by us, right? He got too comfortable with the outside shot, and then you have a career night. And honestly, again, pick up the high ball pressure, send him to the lane, because that's where he gets sped up. He gets out of control when you speed him up and get physical, rather than letting him dance and play laterally. And that's what you saw. Once he could play laterally and he got comfortable, he can kill you, as you saw tonight, right? And honestly, I think that letting Şengün, who became more of a passer in a hub, he broke up our zone a bit, right? And all of a sudden, the Rockets were hitting threes. We knew they weren't going to shoot as poorly as they did in game 1, but when it rains, it pours. And I almost kind of liked it, just because it's like, all right, get them all in tonight. Get them all in tonight. If you believe in the law of averages and the percentages, make them all tonight, because you'll come back down to earth. And I get that you can't show any of these guys the same look. So I'm not saying, hard trap Jaylen Green and just leave Şengün all alone. But I do suspect Şengün may be the lesser of evils, as far as if you leave him on an island, whether it's Draymond, whoever you want to match up with. Yeah, he'll give you 25, maybe 30 points, right? I don't know how efficiently he'll do it. And I also think that it can be at the detriment of the other young Rockets getting into rhythm, because he's so funky in his rhythm and how long he holds the ball and operates. I think, again, that might be the lesser evil of like, all right, we'll let Şengün operate one-on-one and see how efficient he can be, as opposed to, shooting under screens with Jaylen Green and giving him and daring him shots and making sure Şengün doesn't get loose. But I understand that, that's the nature of the beast. It's a pick your poison thing, and you have to change it up here and there. But, that's what I saw with Jaylen Green, as far as just too much space, too much comfortability. So if Jimmy isn't able to return to this series, is it over? A lot of people, that's what they're going to say, right? Well, what's the cliche? The heart of a champion. I think there's a lot of championship pride and spirit and competitiveness still on this roster, obviously, with Steph, Draymond, and even the young guys. And you saw some of that late in this game. But to me, the pecking order must go out the window. In the regular season, a lot of the times I think coaches, it's like, okay, he's up next. He's been doing everything well in practice. He's been waiting for his minutes. I think that goes out the window in the playoffs. It's by any means necessary. And so I'd like to see Kevin Knox. I know Kuminga finally got in there, and there's going to be people in the comments right now that are like, see, he's trash. He wouldn't have mattered anyway. And then there's going to be people that are saying, well, he's been on ice. That's not fair. Right. And, it isn't. But did you expect him to just come out and look great? No. It's a tough situation to throw him into. But you also saw just his struggles, right? The same warts, if you will. And so I'd like to see Kevin Knox, 6'9", little more experience, can shoot the ball, and I think he matches up well with their young wings, Jabari Smith, Tari Eason. These, that's about the same age and size. I don't think that should be ruled out. I also wouldn't mind seeing more Officer Pat, right? You see Officer Pat out there? He's the type of guy, I get the shot looks a little rough from three. I'm not sure how much confidence he has there, but as physical as this series is, the trash talk and all this stuff, he is someone that's going to thrive in that environment. And so, if he took some of GP2's minutes, some of Buddy's minutes, Knox, I'm sure, I'm not saying Kuminga shouldn't get an opportunity, but what I'm saying is whether it's Trace, Pat, Knox, I think, again, the pecking order has to be out the window if Jimmy's not playing. You got to just see who excels in this environment. And no, oh, he's next, or someone's getting paid this and that. It's just got to be that. Not. I think Kerr understands that. I know a lot of you think he doesn't, right? But I'm not going to lie. Down the stretch, I didn't love Steph and Draymond. I thought Steph and Draymond were in the game too long. And it's easy for me to sit on my couch and say, hey, pull them out of there. We're not going to come back, right? I understand the competitiveness of all of them not wanting to come out of the game, especially when there's so much trash talk being had and how quick leads evaporate. But the way Houston was shooting, I don't know about you, I never thought that we were going to come back. I never did. And so I thought they stayed in there a little bit long. But honestly, I like where the series sits from a psychological standpoint. I know Houston hangs their hat on being the tough guys and the bullies. And you're seeing it in the Milwaukee-Indiana series a little bit, where Milwaukee maybe doesn't quite have that identity, except when it comes to the Pacers, right? You see the Bucks trying to be the bullies and the tough guys. Doesn't really work when the other team turns out to be just as, if not tougher. And with the emotions running high, the physicality, you know what the ironic thing is? You can't lie. It feels like we're kind of getting the whistle. We're kind of getting the whistle, right? Except for Steph. I mean, of course, Steph's not going to get it. But overall, in its entirety, I think we've gotten a favorable whistle in the first two games in Houston. And so I hope that continues. Lakers, Warriors, NBA, do the right thing, right? But psychologically, I think it favors us in a game and how it played out, as opposed to a wire job. Let's say Houston pulled it out by 3 and it was close the whole way and no one got hurt, all that stuff. Obviously, you want Jimmy available. But I like the Warriors having to lick their wounds and their pride and having 2 days to think about it, charge back up in San Francisco, where, the young team on the road maybe got a little overconfident in how it went down tonight, right? And then the emotions and the tricks. Draymond, Şengün, right? I think that's the biggest concern. Draymond with anybody, right? He's just towing that line. What I would say is if you watch Şengün, he's pitting Draymond. He's pitting him. He puts his arms up like, I'm not doing anything, and then he rubs his stanky-ass armpit into Draymond, and he's baiting Draymond into throwing a bow or throwing an arm and doing something like, get your stanky ass off me, right? And so Draymond, he's got to just be more subtle with the elbow. Stick the elbow to the rib cage or drive the shoulder into the ribs and incentivize him to not expose his ribs to him so much. But the big swinging of the arms and the throwing of this, you're kind of playing into it. And I know Draymond knows most of these tactics, but, easier said than done in the heat of the moment. And so, again, we sit 1-1, big picture. Obviously, our fate sits in Jimmy's health to a pretty big extent. And I think he'll go. It might be Monday, though. He might need more than a couple days. How many games? Let me know in the comments, because Steph had, while not the same fall, right, but it was quite the same injury. How many days did he miss? I know he didn't play in that Miami game. He had about 4 or 5 days off. And so We may be without Jimmy Saturday back in San Francisco and have an all hands on deck type of performance where we dip into some guys that, you wouldn't expect to. The other positive was I had said I thought Quentin Post might be the X factor for us in this series with the way he can space the floor. And he had some nerves, right? I think he went 0 of 4 at first, and they've done a good job of running him off the three-point line, not giving him any airspace to get his three off. He got loose in that second half, right? And I think he found his confidence in his first playoff series. And so more Quentin Post. And sometimes it can be an advantage when you throw out a Pat Spencer or throw out a Kevin Knox. They just don't have the full scouting report and tendencies. They're not used to guarding these guys, and maybe you can steal one with an unexpected rotation, and then Jimmy gets back, right? And that's the question to me is he'll play in this series, but how many games does he need off? And then how does he protect that contusion in his playing style? You're going to take a bunch more threes? I think he's just going to have to tough it out if it's a pain tolerance thing. Now, if it becomes a mobility issue, then that's a different discussion. That's all I got for y'all right now. My instant reaction as the series goes 1-1 and adjustments have to be made. And heck, looks like rotations are going to have to be made. I will have a full breakdown on my Patreon in the morning. We'll go quarter by quarter, more X's and O's, more details of what I was talking about in this video. Great way to support. And yeah, we keep it moving. 1-1, fingers crossed for Jimmy Butler to be available. And somehow, that's such a bad fall, man. Somehow, it's who you are too, though, right? Like you saw Tatum. Tatum's out with his little sore wrist. Missoula's sick. Missoula's like, bro, get in there and play, right? And if it's someone like that, he might not play. But Jimmy has a history of playing through things like this, and not just playing, but delivering. So, it's spooky how quickly and fragile this can all fall apart, right? But at the same time, I by no means think it's over. I still have some optimism and think that we can still get out of this series. As always, hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.